So the way I found you was I do pest control for a living. Like I sell pest control over the phones. So it's been
Okay.
something I've been doing for probably the last 3 years. So it's nice. I enjoy it, but I'm like, I want something where, I don't have to work the 9 to 5 selling all the
Mhm.
time. So
Yeah.
uh, my company uses their own software, and a lot of companies will use, there's like 5 different kind of top softwares that they use. I'm like, I feel like I could create my own software and then just sell that to them and kind of the monthly subscription model. Um, so,
Just quickly, what are the top five?
so the top five are field routes. Here, let me look it up. I have it written down here.
Yeah.
Field routes, Gorilla Desk.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Um, Pest Pack, Brio Stack, and Pest Boss.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Cool.
So those are kind of the top five that are already out there. And I've talked to some companies, like pest companies themselves, and they say they're paying upwards of $1,000 a month for their software, route automation and texting, things like that. And so I'm like, okay, I see that there's a market. There's tons of pest control companies. There's a lot more starting. So I'm like, well, maybe I could jump in there and start my own software. But now that I've kind of done the research, done the homework, I get to this point where, okay, how do I start or where do I start to create a software? And I'm not a coding guy or anything like that. And so I'm kind of just like, okay, what's my next step? And just was curious how you kind of broke past that with ZenMain.
Yeah. So, there's a really good course. It's no longer sold, unfortunately, but it was called The Foundation. And that was essentially about how to start a software company even if you weren't a developer and didn't have like an idea. So it was just like, oh, you want to start a software company, like this is kind of the way to do it. And so the closest thing I can recommend to that is a book called Start with Zero, which is funny because there's actually a chapter in that book about me because it's written by the founder of the foundation, and then I was obviously a success story out of that course. So like there's actually a chapter about me in that book, but like that's sort of the book version of it. It doesn't really do it justice if we're being completely honest, but like that's probably the best that I can recommend. And if you listen to it, it's a relatively like quick like listen, or see if you check like I don't know, like torrent boards or something like that, and maybe you can find some old version that maybe someone downloaded it at some point. But I mean, honestly, in a nutshell, it's essentially just go talk to like your potential customers and then design a solution, like a mock-up like solution, right? That doesn't have to be well designed at all. It can literally on a sketch pad of cool. So like, this is what I imagine the schedule visualization would look like. And then if you click on this button, it would take you to this page and it essentially just walks through some of those like basic like skills and everything. And then what it's saying that once you have convinced potential users that you're onto a good idea, the goal is to the goal is to essentially pre-sell them, where you go, hey, like I'm going to sell this for $1,000 a month, or you're currently paying $1,000 a month for this. I'm going to come in and charge you half that price while like I'm getting started. But if you sign up now before we even do like the development and stuff, if you give me $5,000 like upfront, I'll give you the software for life, right? Again, just like straight up like done. If we never release the software, I'll refund your $5,000, right? That's like kind of the idea. And obviously, it's a lot easier to say that. It's very easy for me to just make that statement than it is to go out there and to actually do that, like in real life. But the goal essentially from there was so you're non-technical, you talk to people about their problems, you show them mock-ups, you sell them on the idea. From there, now you have money to go hire a technical person or a development team, or you can now go sell a co-founder on joining you to actually build this. And so that's what I did, right? So in my case, I'm non-technical as well. I ran a maid service myself for a short period of time before starting ZenMaid. And for me, it was one of my friends actually approached me and was like, hey, I can build this software. You can obviously sell it. I think that we can figure out the rest. Let's give this a go. And that's essentially like how the company started. But yeah, in many ways I got like quite lucky with that. But we heard a podcast from this guy, and then like maybe like what 6 months or something after we started building the software, they released this course, The Foundation, and then we went through it having already been following it. And so we did that with one customer. We had one user who actually still uses us to this day. She's gotten the best deal of all time. Um, but she paid us $1,000, so $250 a month for 4 months before we had the product ready to release. So we were already working on it, but
Yeah.
we weren't ready to release it. So she was the one person that we pre-sold, and then everyone else, it was just kind of like it felt weird asking for money before you actually had something to show and everything. But like theoretically, it's possible.
Okay, gotcha. Interesting.
Yeah.
And your software developer, it was just was it built all from the ground up? Because I've also talked to some people that played with the idea of like there's already kind of skeleton softwares out there that you can just white label. So I could put my label on that and then resell it. But then
Yeah.
also I lose some sort of customization because it's not my original software. I don't know if you've
So who was
tested that.
suggesting that to you again?
That was just one of my uncles. He's trying to do a similar thing, but for funeral homes. And
Yeah.
so his is a lot more simple. And so I forget the name of it, but there's a white label software where you just build it yourself and then kind of like a website builder, but with software.
Yeah. So there's Bubble, which is a pretty good no code tool that would allow you to do that.
Okay.
That's not white labeling. That's like literally a no code tool. So that's more like what you were saying, where it's like a website builder, but for apps. And then, like, when you build a website builder, people don't go to it thinking, like, oh, like this is Wix. They think this is your website and maybe it's built by Wix, right? So there's a difference between that and white labeling, right?
Yeah.
White labeling, the only option that I know of would be go high level. And I can tell you that if there was actually a white label software out there that you could just white label and it would properly solve people's problems to the point that they would pay you hundreds of dollars a month for it, that company would be worth billions and billions of dollars. That, like, I'm guessing that your uncle just mixed up the terms and said white label when he actually meant like no code. But
Oh,
I mean, you can use go high level to build like a basic marketing funnel software, and we've thought about doing that for like ZenMaid. In fact, we have quite a few folks out there that now claim to be softwares in our space when they're all just glorified like go high level accounts, right? And like nothing wrong with that. They're adding value, but it's not, if you want to get into the actual scheduling game for pest control and stuff, you're not going to be able to white label something, because if anyone had been able to do that, they would already have figured out a way to sell it and they wouldn't be giving it away. You know what I mean?
yeah. No, that
So,
makes sense.
yeah, the no code option is surprisingly good. We actually have I wouldn't say a serious competitor, but like they've built out their own little niche and clearly are making, I don't know, a couple $100,000 a year, and they were built with Bubble. They're actually, we're Zen made and they're Zen Booker, and there's some people that actually prefer like their like booking tool to ours, and I've got to say like it's different than ours, but it's slick in its own way, and they've done a really really like good job with that. So like yeah, I think that that might be an option if you went for a different kind of tool, right? If you're talking about being like the Zen native pest control, for that, I think you've got to build it yourself. But honestly, if I was going to be starting over today, I might consider doing something that was more AI based or something that's a little bit quicker to build to get it into the hands of my ideal users while I work on the scheduling behind the scenes, right? And so, like, back when we started in 2013, you didn't have these fast, like, sort of like builder things. So we could only focus on one thing. And then all of my creativity went into like marketing stuff of building like little websites and stuff like that, where I just met a guy yesterday who's in the cleaning industry now, and he reminds me of me 11 years ago, except for him, instead of building little like cool websites, he's building cool little AI tools, right?
That's yeah.
So,
No,
and
that's
with that, it gives you the option to white label. It gives you the option to do a couple of of other things, but it's very specifically solving a very different problem, right? Like I'm not threatened by him at all just because he's in software and like whatever, because for him to do what we've done is a Herculean like effort, right? Of course, it's done
right.
over 11 years, so it's not like all up front, but it's like there's a very big gap between the games that we're playing.
Okay, gotcha. That makes sense. And then once you've built obviously something with ZenMaid where you have lots of clients, how do you secure that data? Like I'm sure that's probably more to your software guy, but like with our pest company, we have our own software, which is great, but also has tons of bugs. And then we got hacked beginning of this year and we were like down for like 2 weeks. Like we could barely
Yeah.
sell. It was
Okay.
just extremely detrimental to our company. And
Yeah.
I was
And
like,
so
wow,
did they so
but
everything that you just said doesn't happen when you run a cloud software, right? Like your company just paid out the ass for using their own software. They paid a bunch of money to get it developed. It's not being developed ongoing, right? So
yeah,
it's probably a shit software at this point that's not going to get any better. It got hacked because it's probably local to your guys' area. I don't really know the details there, but like
yeah,
our security protocols are set up so if you can hack into ZenMaid, you can hack into probably half of the Ruby on Rails apps on the internet because we just use very standard protocols where it's nothing, it's no genius on our part. We just keep our information like AWS servers and just do all these sort of like standard things. And like, I almost wish that what you just said had happened in our industry so that I could just point to it and be like, this is why you pay ZenMaid. Like, yes, you can develop your own software. You can do it for cheaper, but at what cost? And like, this is the cost, right? Like,
right.
this right here is the cost. And so, yeah, what you're saying is exactly why your company should never have used a local thing that they built themselves in the first place, because the cloud just in general protects against that. Like, I don't actually know the answer to your question because it's so unbelievably standardized in SaaS products like ours that I just don't have to think about it, you know?
Okay.
And then like you've always got people that are like, oh, but like you can access my information. It's like, what am I going to do with your information? Like go to like your specific area of America and sell cleaning services? Like I don't want your information. Like just
Right.
let me help you and just pay me the money and let's just keep it at that, right? Like,
Yeah.
you know. So
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I don't know why that's not the case with my company because that would
yeah.
make it a lot easier and a lot simpler and more streamlined.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
okay.
honestly, it's something that it's because a lot of these owners, they've been doing it for a long time. What's worked for them for 40 years will likely work for them for another 40 years, even if they're giving up a little bit of march. And like as I've gotten further into ZenMaid, I understand why they'll stay on these like legacy systems and stuff. But the other thing is that to them, their current system is probably high tech. And in their minds, it's as secure as it gets because it can't like be like gotten to or whatever. And I think it's just a lack of understanding of technology because like I run into this like when talking to maid service. I don't do sales calls anymore. My team runs into this, right? That like, well,
Right.
you know, what your company has done is like there's a lot of reasons that I could see it making sense to them, even though when you zoom out and look at it holistically, there's absolutely no reason for a local services company to ever do anything on premise. But it's just the
Yeah.
things that like I think about all day long and that you're starting to think about a lot of the day are not what the owners of these small businesses think about. And so it's just understanding different perspectives that like they're not stupid, they just have their own experiences that have led them to believing this is like the right decision for them. And I think that's always a healthy way to like to look at it because they're always trying to protect themselves, but sometimes they don't do it in the best or most intelligent ways.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. And then when you were going and starting off and talking to these companies, were you just kind of like, okay, I know this maid service, let me just cold call or try to reach out and then set up a meeting and then more of kind of like probe, like ask questions like what do you use? How does that work? And then kind of build it from there, or did you build it on your own? Or I guess both.
So Because of the course that we were following, we definitely took much more of like a customer development type like approach where it was, hey, like, I'm a former maid service owner. I recently like exited like my maid service. We built our own little like internal scheduling tool, and I'm just trying to get an idea for if you're running into the same challenges that I was, or if like anything that I've potentially learned might be helpful. So I would lean a lot on your pest control like experience and just be like, hey, in like 15 or 20 minutes, I guarantee you that I can help you with one thing in your business. And in return, all that I ask is that you just answer a couple of questions about how you're dealing with XYZ. And then it's cool. So what are you currently using for scheduling? Are you happy with that? Why not? What's your least favorite thing about it? What's your favorite thing about it? If you could wave a magic wand and change one thing about it, what would it be, etc. And so you can just look up like customer development. I think it's Steve Blank, I think, is the guy who's written the best like blog posts, and I think he's written a book on the topic. He might be like a VC or something, but it's yeah, just look up like customer development and you can find plenty of questions to ask and etc.
Okay, perfect. That's good to know. And then with ZenMaid, like now that you've created something that people can use on a monthly basis, is it something that like is sustainable over time, like people will just stay, or do you find that like in order to keep customers, you have to keep adding more value for them to continue?
Okay, so it's definitely the latter.
Okay.
Like 1,000% the latter. We're 11 years in, and I have 6 developers that are working full time on our product, right?
Okay.
So and you compare that to the first 7 years, right, of the business where we had one person working on the product, and in some ways
Right.
we move faster with one, in some ways we move faster with 6, right? Like it's just like different like things. But this is actually an interesting one. So the first thing is with any company, if you stop like progressing and developing, the company's going to die eventually. And so it's just a question of when. The older and more established the industry is, the longer that the software can survive. That at this point, I would say if ZenMaid just completely stopped development and just let it be, we could coast out for a while, but we would be slowly dying. And that slow death might take 5 or 10 years, but there's absolutely no way that we keep business and continue signing up new business in the long run if we're not staying on the forefront, right?
Okay.
But the nice thing is that if you go this direction, you become the CEO. You're no longer the sales guy, right? You're the sales guy probably for the first couple of years, because as the CEO, you have to be the biggest cheerleader of the product, the company, of everything, right? Like that's essentially like your role. But eventually you get to the point where like today, you sent me an email, I sent you an email right back and was like, let's chat in 45 minutes. I can do that because I have a completely like free schedule. I mean, I have a couple of calls between Monday and Wednesday, but these days I don't work anywhere near as much. But as a company, we get way, way, way more like more done. But yeah, I mean, if you build a scheduling software and stop developing it, it's a very quick amount of time because you have so much competition that's not going to do that, right? So yeah, but you can get a lot of core things in and build a lot of value like quite quickly. And I mean, if you're looking for something that's more like set it and forget it, I would probably recommend doing some sort of like pop-up software or something like that, right? Where it's like, cool, like, here's a little widget that's designed specifically for lawn care companies. So like, you open it up, here's 6 images that you pick from, here's some pre-written text that we know works like better than most pop-ups, and just like, install this JavaScript on your site and we'll start getting you, 5 more email leads a day or whatever, like it might like be or whatever. And then you can sell that. But with that, I mean, you might be talking about 5, 15, $25 like a month, right? But once you get that onto somebody's site, yes, it's easy for them to leave, but realistically, are they really going to? Whereas like with scheduling, they will stick with it for a while. And I think we've got a lot of people that have been with us for 5, 7 years that they'll stay with us for another 5 or 7 years because they just don't want to switch. But mainly what'll kill the business is the lack of new business coming in, right? Because like, the crazy thing for me, like, maybe follow me like on Twitter or whatever, but it took us 3.5 years, I think, to get to $10,000 in monthly recurring revenue, right? And that's because I was full time on something else. My co founder was full time on something else, but it was like a pretty long slog to get to $10,000 a month. And like, keep in mind that at $10,000 a month, we were paying ourselves $1,000 a month each, right? So we weren't paying ourselves anywhere like close to that. So like $10,000 was like barely like scraping like the barrel. We're at a point now where every single month, at the start of the month, I know that by the end of the month, we will lose $8,000 in monthly recurring revenue unless we make up for that with new business, right? So, like now for ZenMaid to grow $1,000 in a single month, we have to add $9,000 a month in new business. And so that's what I mean is that like that's what'll kill the company is the new business drying up. It's not the customers leaving because like customers will always leave. It's just a question of at what rate. Right. And so for us, it's like our customer churn rate is like maybe 4% a month. So like theoretically, that means that if we just stop doing anything, stop marketing, stop doing anything, then we would go out of business in 25 months, right? In reality, many people would pay us for much longer than that. But like that's really like the danger. And that's why you'll hear people saying if your company isn't growing, it's dying. Right. And it's like it's not strictly true, but it's like essentially it's like the last thing it does before dying is stop growing.
Right. Right. Okay. Gotcha. That
So
makes sense. All right. So I guess for me, I'm kind of at this stage where I've only talked to a couple companies, but I guess I need to go talk to more companies and just get a better idea of what they're looking for from a potential software. And then from there, if I was to go look for a software developer, I currently don't have any like friends or family that I know that does that. Is that something that you'd
that
recommend?
that might be a blessing to be
Okay.
completely honest. The number of
Yeah.
people that get like turned around because like their friend's mom is a lawyer or something like that, and then they go to somebody that like knows the law but knows nothing about the law that they need help with or whatever is way too high, right? Like
That's true.
so for that, I would say, I mean, so with that, I mean, there's a couple of different ways to go about doing it, right? Like one thing is, do you want to pay somebody to build you like the software, right? And then you don't give up any equity, but it might cost you, thousands of dollars up front, right? Like if you estimate the amount of time and effort that it took me and my co-founder to get the initial prototype out, it essentially cost us about $250,000. Now, granted, we didn't value our own time at the time because we were so young, and to us, it was entirely worth it. But it's one of those things that I remind myself of every now and again that like if I didn't have my co-founder, there's no way that I would have gotten ZenMaid like off the ground, right? It's why he's got such a sweet deal now, despite having not worked for the company since 2017, right? Because I appreciate what he did for us at the beginning, and literally the company wouldn't exist like without him. So like honestly, I would probably try to go the partner route, and that's because you also want someone with true ownership of the product. You don't want someone that you're paying hourly who's just like, cool, once I get these features out, then Nate will like release, the last 50% of my the last like 50% of my like my payment or whatever. And like, if he doesn't
Right.
hire me for the next project, then this is the next guy's like problem. Right. And so that's where you get technical debt and all sorts of different issues. Right. And that's what you see a lot of softwares that like they do really well for a bit. And then at like year 2 or 3, all of a sudden nothing happens for like a year or two. And it's because they were so focused on moving fast at the beginning that they didn't lay the foundations and then had to rebuild it all. Right. But at the same time, I'm sure they're happy with that result, like as well. So, yeah, I would probably be looking for like a co-founder. But with that, I mean, I think that I would just like, if you want to move forward with this, I think that I would just join as many like software and SaaS communities as you can.
Okay.
And even just start sharing there a little bit, right? Of just do like an intro post that's just, hey guys, like I'm Nate, I've worked in pest control for a while on like the sales side of things. And I'm exploring building a SaaS like as a non-technical founder for the pest control, excited to meet everybody and etc. Because what's funny is that especially in the SaaS communities, it's actually way more difficult to find a non-technical co-founder who's actually worth their weight than it is to
Right.
find a good developer. And so if you can find an indie dev who's just like, I want to be an indie dev, I want to have my own company, but I don't want to talk to customers, I don't want to manage a team, I don't want to do all of that stuff. I just want to like lead the product. That might be who you want to get at the beginning. And then honestly, like you want to plan on like buying them out in a couple of years' time, because whoever that person is not going to be the person to lead your engineering team in the future. Right. So that's what happened with me and my co-founder. The only thing was that I didn't have enough experience or have enough friends at the time to know that I should have bought him out at that point. And so now it's like, even at this point, he owns like 35% of the company when I've been working on it for 7 or 8 years, like without him. Right. And so it's like, I'm still
Right.
grateful for him and everything. But had I known more, I would have bought out most of his shares at that point and then moved on with the company without him, given those shares to my current CTO and et cetera. So,
Sure.
you know,
Okay.
we're probably getting ahead of things here though. Like I think like
Okay.
the point here is, if you can validate that people want a better scheduling software, and you can convince some people that you can be the guy to lead the team to build that, you have too much trouble finding a talented technical like engineer. Right. So it's more like worry about that bridge when you get to it, rather than like than right now, and just solve the problems as they come. But I mean, some people feel like that's almost like unfair. If it's like, why do I have to go and sell like, customers and do all this stuff? And the reason is because if you can't sell them now, why is any developer going to believe that you're going to be able to sell them after they spend 6 or 8 months of their lives building you a product with potentially no upside? And so, just to understand it from their perspective, when you're asking them to partner, the dev is the one who's taking all of the risks, because they're investing all of their time with no guarantee of any outcome on the end. And enough of them have been burned by guys that talk a big game, but then once the software is out, the guy can't figure out how to sell it, or says he needs these 12 features or whatever. If a guy can go out and sell a software that doesn't exist, it inspires a lot of confidence in a potential dev that if they build something good, that this guy's going to go out and sell it.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Okay. Sweet. Well, that's definitely going to be my next step here then. Because like I'm in Utah right now, and Utah's like the door-to-door pest control hub. Just a lot of return missionaries come here and do that. So tons of software or tons of pest control. So I kind of have them all right close by. So that's why I'm like, okay, I could just go to their office and talk to them. So
Yeah, nice, nice. Yeah, I mean, you probably got like relations with a lot of them. Yeah, so that's really good, really, really smart. Okay, cool. Well, keep me in the loop on it. Like, let me know as
yep.
these things like pop up. Like, honestly, I kind of miss it, because like for me, it's like, I'm 11 years in now, and it's almost like it's counterproductive for me to solve these kinds of problems in my company anymore, which is a really like weird thing. But it's like I'm like I'm like finally at that point where it's like I actually have to kind of let go of things and let things go wrong, so that my team actually learns how to run things and how to grow things and how to like do everything. And so yeah, when I get to like talk to people like you that are still at the beginning stages, it's just like, oh yeah, I remember when it was just like you could just make a decision, make a change, and just go do something and like get a result in 24 hours. Now it's like suggested to my team that we change our pricing, which previously was like an afternoon of decision making and then 10 minutes of work. And my team was like, cool, like let's get that started now so we can have it live by Q2 of next year. And I'm just like, what? In what world does it take that long to change your pricing? But like at the same time, I get it. So yeah, keep me in the loop as these
Okay.
challenges like pop up and everything. And do you mind if I publish this on YouTube? I don't really have any like viewers, but I mean, you
Yeah.
obviously found me through YouTube, and like I like having it there, because every now and again, like it honestly is like maybe once a month, I get a message from somebody that's like, hey, I just came across your like, channel, or came across like this video, and it was really helpful. And it's like, that makes me want to do more videos, even though it was so
Yeah.
much work and I stopped doing them because of like the amount of effort. But like honestly, it does just I don't know. It helps me to be like
Yep.
motivated and stuff. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind, like I'd love to. And like I said, I doubt anyone's gonna view it, but it might even be the sort of thing that you might want to look back on, in like a couple
Right.
of years, especially if this works.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm totally cool if you do that. I don't mind at all because Yeah, I'm like all the information that I can just like soak in right now and then go do it. I'm trying to take it all in. So I appreciate your
Okay.
time with me today and kind of give me the next steps for me to move forward.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like I said, just shoot anything by me that you want to. Oh yeah, okay. One quick thing, really quick thing for you. So, um, the foundation, the two things that they really focused on that to me you're like the core kind of things that made their program successful, even for the people that weren't quote unquote successful out of the program, is the first month of the program, they only allowed you to access the mindset chapter of the course and didn't allow you to move forward or to skip that for an entire month. And they said why. They're like, at the end of this month, the rest of it opens up, but the mindset bit is like that important. And so they essentially like spent a bunch of time like sharing about the entrepreneurial like journey and just like, you can find some graphics about it, about the entrepreneurial like highs and lows, that it's definitely an emotional roller coaster. And so you want to prepare yourself like for that, that if you're not able to, I mean, like as a sales guy, I think you're going to be well prepped for it, that if you're not able to deal with rejection or deal with having bad days or even weeks where it just feels like nothing is going your way, probably not cut out for entrepreneurship. But a lot of people that you wouldn't think are then do it and are amazing at it. So it's like, I just think that's a really important thing to keep in mind. And then the other thing that they emphasized at the very beginning that was a bit sort of counterintuitive, given that it's a SaaS course, was copywriting. So, are you familiar with copywriting?
A little bit, yeah.
Oh,
Maybe not as
okay,
much.
so okay, yeah. So copywriting, I would argue, is the number one skill of like an entrepreneur and or like not necessarily a sales guy, because I think a salesperson has to be persuasive like in person, right?
Right.
An entrepreneur has to be persuasive in every form of communication. And copywriting is the best way to learn how to do that. It's the best way to distill a message down of this is what I want the reader or whoever it is that's consuming this, this is what I want them to do. And here's the best way to convince them that doing that is in their own best interest and etc. And so that is a skill that if you get good at that, that will pay massive dividends. And the reason I wanted to just mention that quickly is just because that's something that I feel like if you took one thing away from this conversation and went and spent a couple of months getting good at copywriting specifically, that is something that will make you hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, like throughout the rest of your life, even if you never pursue this idea or entrepreneurship, any further. It's literally that powerful. I mean, like copywriting is at play when we were emailing back and forth to like do this, right? Is like a better copywriter would have made me really excited to get on this call. Not that I wasn't excited to get on the call, and I appreciated like the reach out and everything, but you can think of like other messages that might have made me go, oh, holy shit, like I have to talk to this guy or whatever. That would be an example of better copywriting. And
Gotcha,
so,
gotcha.
yeah, just as a quick skill that I would recommend. Um, so, yeah, and with that, there's a couple things. There's copythat.com from Sam Parr, which is really good. And that's a short one. It's like I don't know, like 30 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day or something for like 10 days. And that's it. So it's like a pretty like easy and like short one to do. And let's see, what are the other two? There's a course called Power Writing by Sean Puri. Those two host a podcast together. That's quite good. So he's got one that's called Power Writing, and then the last one to recommend quickly is a podcast episode. So start with the podcast episode. Is There's a guy called Harry Dry. He has Harry's Marketing Examples, I think is his like website. It's like Harry's marketingexamples.com or something like that. He did a podcast episode like last week or the week before with David Perel. I haven't listened to it personally, but a bunch of people that I follow and respect have said this is like a 76-minute, just like mic drop in copywriting that's applicable to all levels. So like even giving that a listen will probably at least emphasize to you just how powerful like copywriting can be. But you know, you've got sales as one of your skill sets, so talking to all these people is going to be like big, but the very next thing is going to be cold emailing people, cold calling people, building websites, right? All sorts of like writing things that the better your writing is, the better results that you get.
Okay. Awesome. I took notes on a bunch of those things, so I'll definitely,
Cool.
yeah, put that into practice and then let you know how it goes.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, let me know if you want to jump on another one of these in the future when you got another issue to discuss. And otherwise, yeah, keep me in the loop. Yeah, with just like how things are going, because I'll definitely be interested to follow along.
Okay, sounds good. I'll let you know. Thanks so much for your time today.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks, Nate.
Take care.